also need advocates working with community members to ensure that their authentic voices and needs are represented in the community benefits conversation. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce the staff attorney at Conservation Law Foundation in the Clean Energy and Climate Change and Environmental Justice Programs, Anxhela Mile. Anxhela, welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I do have some slides, so hopefully you'll all be able to see it. I'll give Sarah a minute to just begin. But thank you to ELM, thank you to Mayor Mangallo for being here and for talking about the experience with the Community Benefits Agreement in Salem, Massachusetts. CLF was delighted to be helping represent Salem Alliance for the Environment in this matter, and I just wanted to bring in some perspective from the community group and just speak about our process in getting involved in the negotiation, and also just provide some context in the manners in which CBAs are being implemented throughout the United States, especially with new climate laws on the tables that are supporting CBA development as new federal money is going to climate and energy policy. So next slide, please. So to take a step back into Massachusetts and to Salem, the mayor did state that Salem, Massachusetts is an environmental justice population, and that is pursuant to the 2021 roadmap law that Massachusetts passed, which not only set greenhouse gas emission reductions for and targets for the Commonwealth, but also codified or legally defined what an environmental justice population included, which was based on 4 criteria, including race, English language proficiency, and income. In addition, the roadmap law also built on years of environmental justice policy that the state had been implementing through its Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, EJ policy, and Executive Order 552. But I did want to note that the roadmap law really requires agencies and the state in general in its decision-making to advocate for meaningful involvement of people in the enforcement of environmental laws and also the distribution of environmental benefits and burdens. And as more energy infrastructure is going to be placed throughout the Commonwealth, it's important to ensure that environmental justice communities are at the heart of that, of the energy transition. And right now, that is defined in the roadmap law. Next slide, please. So CLF was approached by Salem Alliance for the Environment, SAFE, approximately a year ago. And SAFE is a local environmental organization that's committed towards helping Salem achieve a just energy transition, while recognizing Salem's history as a coastal city with a diverse population. Salem is a designated EJ population and meets all of the 4 criteria as mentioned before in the roadmap law. And as we know, Salem now is going to host the state's 2nd major offshore wind terminal, which will be an operations center for turbine pre-assembly, transportation, staging activities, and storage of assembly components. What's also unique about the facility is that the site is expected to support 6.1 gigawatts of offshore wind electricity generation, which is 61% of the Commonwealth's goal by 2035, and a 1/5 of the nation's goal by 2030, powering more than 3.5 million homes. So definitely a significant project, a significant development, and really, especially considering Salem's history in terms of hosting a coal-fired energy plant, it really is kind of a beacon and a symbol of the energy transition. So SAFE approached us a year ago. To assist with the community benefits agreement. We can move to the next slide. Thanks, Sarah. So just to give a context, we're talking about CBAs, but to get into the definition of what a CBA, I think that's an important step to take here. And CBAs typically tend to be contracts between developers and coalition groups. They're fairly new legal concepts, with the first being negotiated in 1990. And in terms of how many major CBAs exist in terms of large-scale development, scholars claim that there's 20, although I think now with recent developments of, especially with the new Inflation Reduction Act, which I'll highlight later, that number is definitely going to increase. And developers are often incentivized to go through the process of negotiating a community benefits process so that coalition groups don't oppose the permitting process, which can result in years of delay and litigation and can be quite expensive. So in this particular situation, SAFE was in a unique position because the mayor and Crowley, the private owner of the wind port, had entered into an agreement to negotiate a CBA, but coalition groups wanted to make sure that they were part of the process. And again, and there's commentary that certain times when city officials are in place, you want to make sure that any conflicts of interest are minimized, and that really gets assured when there's more community groups at the table. And just also to highlight that a CBA is only one form of a community benefit that could be raised from development. There's many other forms, and here we'll be talking about a CBA, but a project labor agreement is also another one, which can help ensure that developers prioritize employing local residents for good wages. Next slide, please. So CLF began by joining SAFE and coalition meetings with the greater group SOA and assisted in researching the law on CBAs. So essentially, the first portion of our involvement was advisory support and as a member of the Offshore Wind Coalition, Salem Offshore Wind Alliance. So currently, Massachusetts does not require CBAs to be part of the development agreement, and this is fairly common in most states. There is some state policy and guidance for CBAs, particularly for hospitals. But with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Department of Energy has required that applicants receiving some of the federal money to fund these renewable energy projects must be directly involved in community benefits. And this definitely marks the largest investment in climate and energy infrastructure in American history. And it's really through a carrots not a sticks approach. So now state agencies as well as developers are tasked with seeking to obtain these federal money. And in order to do so, they have to ensure that the negotiation process is inclusive, enforceable, resulting in a contract, transparent, and to involve coalitions. And CLF shared this information with the mayor's office and with SOA to try to ensure that at the end of the day, the process was as inclusive of the community group as possible. Next slide, please. So in the end, SAFE was in a unique position where they were really supportive of the wind energy, but wanted to ensure that their community directly benefited from the project. And after a few meetings of negotiation, the mayor's office did agree, which was very exciting, to have SAFE be involved in the negotiation process by viewing the terms and being able to provide feedback after signing a memorandum of understanding. It's important to address that we also did the legal representation with a professor from Albany Law School, Professor Edward Barberi, whose research specializes in CBAs and who was crucial towards the legal representation. And again, SAFE was very supportive of the relationship that they had with their city official and being represented. So they wanted to make sure that they continued to build on that relationship while incorporating some of the terms that they were truly passionate about in terms of the CBA. So now the CBA is released, which is really exciting. So we can talk about the terms. And, the mayor also went through a lot of the different components. There was a lot of back and forth in terms of workforce development, port electrification, especially labor hiring practices, ensuring that there was diverse hiring as well, and the environmental impacts of the project as well that was outside of the general local zoning board process. And then next slide, please. Yeah, so overall, I think there are a lot of long-term benefits and lessons that can be gained here. We are very appreciative of the mayor for ultimately including SAFE in the negotiations. But as best practice, we definitely want to ensure that community groups need to be directly part of CBA negotiations, and that oftentimes means having them as signatories in the negotiations. However, a lot of feedback was implemented here, and the mayor highlighted one of those, which was ensuring that community groups or individuals were part of the process in ensuring the CBA terms were followed. That was something that we discussed in multiple occasions to make sure that there's an oversight process and that folks that are going to be impacted by the development are incorporated in that. CBAs and community benefits, we have a ways to go still in Massachusetts, and I think throughout the United States. The deployment of clean energy is going to continue to expand, and we have a lot of questions in terms of permitting and siting. A lot of those are happening throughout the Commonwealth. In September 2023, a Commission on Energy Infrastructure and Siting was established by the governor to review permitting timelines and ensuring communities have input in the process. The commission did release its report, so we will see how this current legislative session implements the recommendations by the commission. There's also a few bills on the table that are being negotiated ongoing right now in terms of how siting is going to be implemented, and CBAs are definitely at the heart of some of those discussions. I also wanted to mention that the CBAs, again, are just one form of benefits. I think we have to talk about, other ways to really ensure that past and historical injustices, especially on communities that have really kind of been overburdened by some of these developments, are really incorporated in processes moving forward. And it won't erase historical injustices, but it is important to keep that in mind as we move forward. And I think having long-term conversations on how the state in general is going to transform some of these permitting processes is very important. And I think that's it. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them now or at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anxhela, for sharing this critical perspective and for your tireless work representing the community of Salem during these CBA negotiations. Thank you.